I'm doing well. This is our last week of the semester, so I will be doing even better after Friday.
That's good.
Scenery behind you is lovely, Mary Jo.
Thank you. I have relocated rooms in our house. So I took over a room where the kids typically play. So we each have half of the room.
Perfect.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh, just a moment.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we are live streaming and we're recording. We're ready to start the meeting.
Welcome to the Dietetics Advisory Council. The time is 2:02 p.m. on December 7th, and we're pleased to be holding this council virtually. At this time, we'll be taking attendance. Judy Nagy.
Here.
Ashley Pax.
Here.
David Rierson.
Here.
Mary John Ludy.
Here.
Susan Finn.
Here.
Carmen Clutter.
Here.
And Kathy Shalito.
Here.
Thank you, guys. We have everyone here today. This is wonderful. The minutes from the November 2020 meeting were sent to you in advance for review. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions about the minutes. And could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
In a second.
Second.
We did just have a correction. There was an error, technical error on the second page. It said Respiratory Care Council instead of Dietetics Advisory Council. So in the final version, we will make that amendment.
Okay. We didn't see that closely, Sarah. We should have read it more closely.
So the motion will be to approve the minutes as corrected. Everybody,
Yes.
if the motioner can agree to that. Thank you.
It's time now for our legislative update, so we will get Chelsea Walensky, the board's legislative director, to give an update.
Can we have a quick voice vote with just a bunch of ayes for approving the minutes, please?
Aye.
Anybody opposed to approving the minutes? Okay, we're good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, well, I'll go into the legislative update. Thank you for allowing me to provide this information to you. Over the past month, the legislative team has been working to monitor several pieces of legislation. I think the highest priority on our list are occupational licensing bills. Senate Bill 246 is the occupational licensing bill that would require the board to grant reciprocity for licensees applying from out of state. We worked with the bill sponsor as well as the committee chair to address some concerns that we had and submitted some amendments. I'm happy to report that those amendments were adopted as part of the bill last week in committee. These amendments allow for greater flexibility in making determinations on an applicant's fitness to practice. And the changes not only allow the medical board more flexibility, but also grant that same flexibility across all boards. Senate Bill 364 is the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. This would require Ohio to join several other states in that compact. We have traveled to meet with the bill sponsor to address concerns with that language. She has advised that she, understands our concerns and she is taking all information into consideration. House Bill 263 is another occupational licensing bill. This is the bill that would require the medical board to create a comprehensive list of criminal offenses that would prevent a person from becoming licensed in Ohio. Since the last board meeting, we have been working with several other healthcare boards to develop a solution to our concerns with this language. Last week, the Senate heard that bill for the third time, and the medical board, as well as those other boards that we've been working with, did submit testimony to make suggestions to make the language a little more palatable. And that concludes the legislative update. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Chelsea. Everyone knows we're having lame duck over the next couple of weeks, so
Yeah,
he's doing a really good job of monitoring all the committees and all the bills that we're following, just to make sure that we're all being protected during that time.
yeah.
For the meeting of the council that was held in November, there were some documents that were sent for review, including the dietetics FAQs that are on our website. And we got both input from Mary John Luty as well as Kay. And I wanted to see if they could walk us through what their concerns were and their comments were as far as the FAQs for possible discussion with the council.
Okay.
Sure, I can walk through my concerns because I shared those and then Kay responded to mine. So I think it makes sense to go in that order. So in terms of the responses, I think that you've all received those, but the first question that I had a thought on, it was just a simple thing of changing the numerals. So I think that's probably no big deal. But then I read questions 13 and 14, and they seemed the same, or they seemed to overlap quite a bit. So I suggested combining those two. And then I thought it would be helpful for question 28 to better define what our group does. And we had talked at our November meeting about some existing guidelines and bulletins and linking to those directly and giving them a title, because previously it was something like guideline C was provided and we didn't know what that was about. So I suggested, directly linking to those and giving them titles. And then, Kay nicely, I feel like in her response, had some suggestions for specific guidelines and bulletins. So I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Kay, if you can add in.
Sure, I'm happy to. I appreciated Mary John's suggestions, and then I added a few of my own in. In question 5 was where I suggested adding a lot of the bulletins just as a point of reference. And I provided an example. So for example, in question 5, after exemption B, because that's a question that lists in the answer each of the exemptions to licensure. And I suggested, and I provided to you, a copy of the exemption at the very end of it to add in, refer to guideline A for further clarification. Because then you can go and get the details of it and you know exactly where to go. And then I would do similarly at the end of exemption D, exemption E, H, I, and J to the particular bulletins or guidelines that are should be referenced by those questions. After question 11, that was another one where I suggested adding at the end, refer to bulletin number 4 for further clarification. In question 20, it's a question about titles that can be used, and there was no reference to use that it was permissible for registered dietitians to use RDN along with their LD credential. So I suggested adding that in there because we are permitted by the Commission on Dietetic Registration to use that title. So that would be appropriate for registered dietitians to also use with the title LD. Also in that question 20, there's a section on dietetic technicians, and the answer to the question just says that the dietetic technicians need to meet the exemption and work under the supervision of a licensed dietitian. I'm suggesting adding which exemption, which would be 4759.10B, and then link that again to that section. And then in another paragraph of the answer to that question number 20, do similarly for baccalaureate to graduates meeting the exemption and reference the exemption 4759.10E. I know in my past, that's one of the things that's often misunderstood by dietetic technicians. They don't know under which exemption they work. So I think it's important to link it to them as much as possible. In question 24, this is, I think, just a technicality because the board is now going for limited permit licenses. Instead of being issued for 7-month time period, 7 months at a time, they're going to be issued for 6 months at a time. That's just a correction that needs to be made there. Changed from 7 months should be changed to 6 months. And then the final thing I said in my suggestions was, I know that the council talked a little bit before about finding these resources. In my thinking, the way you get to them now is you have to go under a big button that says apply and then renew. And then there's some different resources back there as well as a link to applying for a license or renewing a license. That didn't seem real intuitive to me. But there is a section on the medical board's website at the top of the board's website where it says resources. And there are various resources listed for various licensee types in there, including nutrition and dietetics. And under the link now, under that blue bar, there are references up there that include information that links to jurisprudence, which is really a licensing issue, or renewing your license type thing. But there's also links to the Ohio Department of Malnutrition report, the Ohio Department of Aging, and the 2017 revised standards of practice in nutrition care, which I think are all appropriate to be there. But I think maybe that's a location where the guidelines and bulletins can also be put, or because they're resources, to me, that seems a little bit more logical. So anyway, just a thought for your consideration. And that was all I had.
Let me add something as Pat. I would certainly second what Kay's saying because we keep getting questions from licensees, and they are often those kinds of questions because they can't find what we know is there. So I think the more cross references we can do, the better. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kay. Those are the kinds of things you would pick up because you and Pat have worked so closely with those. So thank you.
Well, we have, like Pat said, we have to get in there and tell people how to get to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not into it.
Yeah, no, this is good.
Thank you. Those are really good suggestions. So we'll go back and take a look and see if we can't get all this put back together again with all your suggestions. And Mary John, thank you too so much. And we'll get this formalized and then send it back out to you guys if that's okay, along with making the changes to our website that you suggested.
Jill, can I make one last suggestion?
Yes.
This is Kay. Now that you've accepted those suggestions and the FAQs are going to be better, I think you probably need to take a dive into the guidelines and bulletins individually, because it's been a while since those have been updated. So I think that might be something that the council might want to consider working on.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we just need to take this one bite at a time and
Right.
go back because we're relatively new at doing this. Some of the stuff I think has aged a little bit, and I think maybe we could restructure it a little bit better. So if the council wouldn't mind helping with that, that's something that we can kind of take a bite out at a time until we get it where it makes the most sense and it's as clear and accurate as we can get it. So we will change that stuff, send the FAQs back out, make the changes to the website, and then we'll start on the guidelines and bulletins next. We did send out the 2021 dates for the meeting of this council. And then also they are on our website. So once you get to the point, if you've Mary John, did you not get those?
You saw it in my face, didn't you? I was
I
like,
looked
gee,
up.
I missed that attachment or something because I
don't have it. I don't have it either.
really have the date yet.
So we will send those out as we're on here.
Perfect.
To send out the link to those. I'm glad I said something. I would have been on
Yeah.
the next meeting.
We were all looking a little bit.
I just happened to catch Mary John's face when I looked up. I'm like, nope, she doesn't have.
Yes. Oh, no, I'm not a very good poker player. You can read.
Sarah's sending those out right now, I can tell. We have 3 members whose terms are expiring in 2021, and we'll be reaching out to you guys to see if you want to be reappointed. And while Kay and Pat are on here, I wanted to see if one of them wanted to give an update.
I'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, just to let you know that the Academy is continuing to work on trying to get legislation introduced to be able to, for dietitians to be able to write diet orders. As you all know, since 2014, CMS has said that dietitians should be able to do that. And we've been trying to get legislation introduced to clarify that ability here in Ohio. The old Ohio Board of Dietetics had a rule that has some language in it. It's 4759-6-02 that we thought had cured that problem in Ohio. Because it said that dietitians could do anything that CMS said they could do. But when dietitians attempted to start to write diet orders, Pharmacy Board balked at the ability for pharmacists to dispense dangerous drugs. So it stopped dietitians from writing orders for TPN. It doesn't stop dietitians from writing orders for diets, but pharmacists can't dispense dangerous drugs unless you're the profession is listed as a having the ability to having prescriptive authority. So we had developed amendments that we intended to introduce, and when we sent them out and we're talking to people about it, we got some pushback from the Medical Association, and they suggested a different approach for us. And so now we're in the process of, we've developed an amendment using a different approach. That approach is for dietitians to enter into consult agreements with physicians to be able to, in facilities where they have been granted privileges, to be able to write diet orders and orders for TPN. So that's the approach we're using now. We're working with Senator Hackett's office to do that. And we're, fully intending to try to get that going here after the holidays. We're looking for support from the medical board in this. I know we provided a copy of our draft amendment to Chelsea and to Jill. So that might be something that, I don't know, Jill, what you think if the council wants to talk about that at a following meeting. But the association's, we've been working on this for a long time, and we're very interested in getting it introduced.
I do think, Kay, this is something that should probably, that council should be educated on and maybe get to see the language on.
Okay, so at the next meeting, we'll provide, or perhaps after this meeting, we can send the language out to the council members. That'll give you a good time period to digest it, and then at our next meeting, we can talk about it.
Okay,
That's a good.
Okay.
At this point, I think many of our members are ready to give up because we've tried so long to do this, and it just seems so absolutely ridiculous that we continue to have this problem. But we keep fighting.
Yeah. Another piece of legislation that following and concerned about is telehealth. House Bill 679 isn't a concern for us because dietitians are included in that. That bill would allow various providers that were included in the emergency bills that were going on during the COVID-19 to continue to provide services by telehealth, and dietitians are included amongst those that are listed in House Bill 679. So on December 1st, Pat provided testimony to the Insurance and Institutions Committee as a proponent for that. And she, along with a number of other associations, the OTPT Association, OSMA, Speech Hearing, Diabetes Association, and a number of the big medical centers like Wexner and Cleveland Clinic and United Health and all those folks testified as well and as proponents. But in that same committee hearing, Senate Bill 305 that's sponsored by Senator Craig, who sits on that committee, Pat testified as a proponent, but was requesting that dietitians be added as a provider. The Senator Craig's bill is a little bit different in that the bill includes doctors, psychologists, or psychologists,
NPs,
nurse practitioners, and other healthcare providers licensed, accredited, or certified to perform healthcare services consistent with state law. So it's not specific about the other providers that can provide services. So in Pat's testimony there, she testified as a proponent, but asked that dietitians be specifically added to that bill. And I would think that some of the other groups might request that as well. That's a little bit different, but it's also related to telehealth.
Interested party instead of proponent, because I didn't want to testify as a proponent since we didn't really support it the way it was. So I said I was an interested party.
Oh, they listed you as a proponent, Pat.
All right. Okay. Whatever.
So, I think that's pretty much what we're doing in a nutshell. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Kay. If you get the amendments to us, we'll go ahead and send those out.
I will do that.
Yeah, and we'll get those out to the council.
So I have a question. I received the email from Sierra with the dates. I found the date. Two questions related to that. So are the meetings still going to be at this 2 to 3 p.m. time frame? And how long are we approved to keep meeting in a virtual sense?
So we are approved until July 1st. And we intend to still do that at the 2 to 3 o'clock time period unless there's some type of agreement by the council that they need it changed. We're also hoping, we have submitted language, which obviously is not in the budget bill yet because it hasn't been introduced, and I don't know for sure that it will, but we are interested in having the ability to continue doing these remotely. The Physician Assistance Advisory Council has that in statute. And that's something that we'd like to get for you guys as well. So that is something that we're pursuing.
I appreciate that. I do see the value of face-to-face meetings, and I really enjoy that level of engagement. But it's nice to have the opportunity to do virtual as well.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do a mix. You know, and get to the point where we do have in statute that enables us to do that. Maybe we'll do a mix so that we still have the ability to get together every once in a while. The rest of the time, I know everyone is still working and still has a lot of stuff on their plate. And if this is easier, but maybe a few times a year, if we could get together, that would be great. So we'll keep you updated on what happens with all of that.
Good.
But we were very happy to be able to do this one, especially with the surge and everything, to be able to do this one remotely.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we sent something out on House Bill 404. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read that. That is a bill that was passed through both houses of the legislature, and it was signed, and it was regarding the extension of COVID-19 emergency. So we did send something out recently about licensees, and Glory knows I have aggravated Pat and Kay trying to get the word out, trying to make sure we didn't lose any licensees during the pandemic, and then they extended it. So thank goodness we got a lot of people relicensed. But in the meantime, anyone who has a license that's supposed to be renewed between March 9th and April 1st of 2021, March 9th of 2020, April 1st of 2021, will now have until July 1st of 2021 to renew their license. So it's been extended again. We're still encouraging people to go ahead and renew. People will go back to their regular licensing time periods, and we are trying to get people to go ahead and get their license renewed because we're always concerned we're going to lose somebody here along the way. So although people during that time period still have until July 1st, we're still encouraging people to go ahead and renew.
Jill, do you know how many are missing now? How many have not licensed?
You know, Kay, I'm kind of confused now because we need to figure out who should have renewed by December 1st and now who has until July 1st of next year. But I will ask Joe to let us know, and I will send that out to the whole council.
Okay. I just think it's a whole bad idea, but, you know, we can't control it, so I guess we do.
Yep. We're just going with the flow.
Yes, that's all we can do.
Yeah. So I will send that out to everyone with the additional information that I told you I'd send out. The next meeting of this council is not scheduled until February 8th. And boy, that'll be here before you know it, of next year.
Yeah.
And we will go ahead and get the documents out to you to be reviewed, as well as how many licensees there are. Is there anything else that we need to discuss while we're on this meeting right now? Okay, then I think we're going to go ahead and adjourn, and we will email you documents and information. Everyone have a wonderful, safe, healthy holiday. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move. So move.
Is there a second to the motion?
There's a second.
Excellent. Excellent. And if just a voice vote would be fine. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I wouldn't think anybody would be opposed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Bye-bye.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
They said